In the latest One Piece episode, Walkuri says that he will prevent Luffy from entering his quote original form. Do you think there will be another gear form for Luffy? Mate, I was caught very off guard by this, because the anime added quite an impactful line that was not in the manga. And it was when Walkuri said Monkey D. Luffy, which is already weird, because the elders don't tend to address humans by their actual names, not to their faces anyway, they call them insects and such. But Saint Big Pig goes on to say, to make sure you will not turn back to your original form, I will chop you up. So in the manga, Walkuri doesn't say anything at this point. He just attacks and Dorian Broggy block on behalf of Luffy. But in the anime, Walkuri does seem to be implying that Gear 5th Luffy is not his final form, and that there is a further, or I guess backwards, original state that he must prevent Luffy from reaching. And it may even be implying that Luffy himself is actually Nika, not just a dude cosplaying Nika with the help of magical fruit. And I really don't know what to make of this. Anime original lines are always to be taken with a healthy dose of delicious skepticism, because sometimes their decisions do directly contradict the manga. However, whether it is right or not that, I think that we all know deep down there will be another transformation, or at least a Gear 5th variant, because that is just the way of shonen manga, and as broken as Gear 5th is now, I cannot wait to see how Oda tops it. Something I haven't seen mentioned anywhere regarding the unfolding God Valley incident is how formative it may be for Kaido, who will see the tragic yet proud death of his captain, which will form his philosophy on how death completes a man. Alright, first thing, I think you haven't seen it mentioned because people have more or less given up on Kaido's backstory. I recently made a video focusing on the Kaido in question, and something that I very foolishly left out was the reaction of Kaido's voice actor Tesho Genda when he was finally defeated on Wano. After he recorded what he didn't realize at the time was his final episode, at least for Wano, he was dumbstruck and he asked the director, "Did I just lose?" And Mayumi Tanaka, the voice of Luffy, had a similar reaction. Both of them were very surprised that Kaido was beaten when he was, because they both felt like there was still more story to be told there, or at least more battle to be had. And so there is an opportunity to tell more story with Rocks. The suggestion here being that Rocks will provide Kaido with a model of how to die, which will begin his death obsession. However, it could also go in very much the other direction. Rocks could die in a way that Kaido deems insufficient of a man of his prominence, which is why when he's introduced after Dressrosa, Kaido only mentions Whitebeard and Roger as people who have died correctly. He also might only mention those two because Rocks may not have existed in Oda's mind when Kaido was introduced at the end of Dressrosa, but I am hoping that however God Valley ends, it will provide the formative context I crave so dearly for Mr. Kaido, as it was something definitely bad enough to make Kaido abandon the remaining Rocks pirates and to leave without telling Lin anything. Something on God Valley hurt this man, it hurt his heart, and so we shall see what this is. If baby Shanks was shown in the panel where Garp is chasing the 3 future Yonkos, it would have been a historical event of all 4 Yonkos in a single panel together. There is still time for this to happen. God Valley is unprecedented in that we do actually have all 4 of the original 4 emperors of the sea all in one location, and not just 4, we have more than 4. With Blackbeard in total, we actually have 5 of the 7 people who would officially go on to hold the title of Emperor of the Sea, as well as the father and grandfather of Luffy, our 6th Emperor, and I swear something must be happening with Buggy somewhere. As a reminder, he is the exact same age as Shanks, so he is a baby right now, and the Roger Pirates also picked him up somewhere. We don't know where. But if it is also God Valley, there could be a connection to all 7 emperors, making God Valley the most formative historical event that has ever happened according to the not history books, because it isn't there. Man on the internet, who is today's sponsor? That is a phenomenal question. The greatest prize to be won on God Valley may have been Shaki, but the greatest prize to be won in this video is the award-winning flavor from the sponsor of this video, Fume. And this here special device, this is a Fume Zero. A single-use flavored air device with no vapor, no nicotine, and no batteries, just magnificent flavored air in a brand new super sleek package, made for relieving daily stresses, featuring all new fidgeting technologies with a satisfying chewable mouthpiece. Om nom nom. And what I love about Fume Zero is that it makes life simple. There's no opening it up to change the flavor cores. It is just a one and done, straight out of the package, ready to go, no setup, which I really appreciate. I prefer to streamline my life wherever possible, and it is especially important when trying to form new habits. And Fume Zero comes in fantastic flavors such as crispy mint, peach blush, raspberry, mango, orange vanilla, and spearmint ice, with each Fume Zero delivering 10 days straight of peak flavor. With Fume already having helped over 500,000 Fumans develop better habits, and Zero has just made it easier than ever to start. So you can and should check out Fume by using my link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen, because there are now zero barriers to better habits. And thank you so much as always to Fume, as it's due to the support of sponsors like them that we're able to bring you the best fictional pirate content possible as often as possible. So definitely check them out, but for now it's back to you. Me? Thanks, me. I was watching the anime yesterday, and I was wondering if Bonnie could turn Brook back to normal by aging him to where he was younger. She probably can, but I don't think it'll happen, because Oda's been very careful with how he uses, or really, how he doesn't use Bonnie, as her powers are ridiculous. You gotta keep her constrained, or things are gonna get out of hand. But the fun part about the potential of this is that we don't even have to make Brook look younger. What Bonnie could do is give Brook any number of alternate future forms where he kept his body. But aside from just being fun, the only way I could see this happening would be if it was something to do with Gunko. Mr. Brook has already started to break through to her, which he doesn't realize, and neither does she really. But perhaps one way to solidly break whatever control Imu has over Gunko would be to give Brook a flesh and blood form and appear the same as Gunko remembers him. That's the only way I can see it happening, because there's really no benefit to Brook otherwise. Giving him the rest of his body back at this point would just be weighing down his fighting style with all of that meat. Although I do feel like it might be against the spirit of One Piece in general for Brook to need to have his body to get through to Gunko, as the more touching way to resolve this would be for Gunko to realize that it's Brook, even though he is nothing but bones now, as the spirit of Brook is still there, etc. Do you anticipate that Loki's future role is gonna be significant? Because from what I understood and heard from Rocksteady's Beck himself about the legendary Devil Fruit of Elbaf, is that if King Harold ate this fruit, he would be able to destroy the world government. So that understanding is not quite correct. Harold and the fruit, they are just components of the plan. And as a reminder, in chapter 1156, Rock said there were 2 devil fruits he was looking for. One of those fruits is still a pretty massive mystery to us. We haven't touched on that at all, but we should before the flashback ends. Maybe, actually, I don't know. Maybe we won't. But the second is implied to be Elbaf's legendary devil fruit, which Rox didn't even want for himself. He needed King Harold to eat it in order to unlock its true power. But even having Harold with the fruit isn't good enough, as it was Captain John, actually, the now theorized father of Eustace Kid, who pointed out that Rox also needed the ancient GLR giants. And it's only with those 3 to 4 things that Rox can actually succeed. He needs the ancient clan of the giants, he needs Harold to have eaten the legendary devil fruit, and the third thing he needs is that second mystery devil fruit. But that is why Rox said that Elbaf was the key to, quote, taking down the Holy Land, which we know doesn't happen, and I suppose if Loki was to inherit the will of Rox, then that would theoretically go on to be his goal. Although even he, if he has eaten the devil fruit, would still need 2 more things to make that happen. And I should also say that bringing down the Holy Land is not the goal of the Straw Hats, at least not at the moment anyway. Currently, they have no reason to be bothered in any way with the Holy Land yet, and that's one reason why asking about Loki's future significance isn't a bad question. I know to some people this probably sounded like a stupid question. Is Loki gonna be significant? Probably. But the will of Rox and the will of Luffy are not necessarily aligned. Plus, this story could end with Loki coming to the conclusion that Harold's path was the correct one, and we'd end up with Loki being another monarch left behind, thus dampening his future relevance. And at the moment, yes, Loki does feel like one of the most important characters in modern day One Piece, but I don't know how much that guarantees his role going forward either, not beyond Elbaf or even on Elbaf. And most of my doubts are probably a bit trauma-based, and they come directly from Yamato on Wano. When we met Yamato, it was very much the same vibe as Loki. With Yamato, it was, oh my god, here is one of the most important people to have ever existed, because we've got the child of a world-renowned figure who has read the Journal of Kozuki Oden, and claims to want to set sail with the Straw Hats to finish what it is Oden started. And then Well, not a whole lot. And even during the Wano arc, there wasn't a whole lot. If you track Yamato's path during the raid on Onigashima, not a lot really happens. Yamato first decides to protect Momonosuke, but then abandons that to help Luffy, and then abandons that to help defuse the weapon stockpile, which is an issue that was solved by Big Mom's defeat and not Yamato. And then Yamato kind of runs out of things to do and becomes a cheerleader for Momonosuke until Kaido is ultimately beaten, and then doesn't even join the crew afterwards. Everything that Yamato set out to do, everything Yamato said, was either abandoned or completed by someone else. And I'm really hoping that Loki doesn't get the same treatment. However, I'm pretty confident that he won't, because Oda has designed this man for action. You do not create a character design this cool to not use it in some sort of amazing way. Whereas Yamato has a very standard feminine Oda design, and Oda likes to keep those designs safe and over here and not punch them too much. But it does look like that Oda is setting Loki up to be extremely relevant to the dawn of the world through the legendary Devil Fruit business, I think. Because look, I don't know, at the time, Odin's journal felt just as relevant as this as well. So I don't know, we will see. Do you think we will see how Sword was created on God Valley? Kind of like the reward incentive Garp will get for his contribution? I don't know. Because God Valley, it might be a bit too early for Sword. We don't know exactly when Sword was created, but if you look at its membership, we see Kobe, Helmeppo, Hibari, Prince Gru, Kujaku, etc. It is a very this generation organization. With its current oldest member, Diaz Drake, the captain of Sword, still only being 33 years old. I'm also not hugely confident that Sword is a creation that was pioneered by Garp. If it was, you'd think you might call it Fist or something. And I do like the ideas that Sword might be more linked to Fujitora, because in the world of One Piece right now, Sword isn't a very well-known organization, which speaks to some recency, and it might have been one of Fujitora's conditions to become a Marine Admiral, to have the power to create an organization like this at his discretion. And as for Garp's involvement, when Vice Admiral Dole is speaking to Garp, she states that she assumed Garp had permission from high up to pick a fight with an Emperor of the Sea before setting sail to Hachinosu to rescue Kobe. If Garp was actually involved in Sword, he wouldn't need that permission. He could just do whatever he wanted as he saw fit. And really, I think that Garp is the model for the standard Marine, the one who fits within the organization rather than the one who goes rogue, even though that's exactly what he does. His hero status is more like the ideal law-abiding Marine. However, the argument I would make for Garp starting Sword is that it would form part of liberation within the Marines. Perhaps not for Garp himself, but laying the groundwork for future generations to pursue their own beliefs of justice. Thoughts on the card game? Right, so the One Piece card game, it has gotten a lot better. When it was first released, I absolutely trashed this TCG because the cards themselves, they were garbage. Most of them were pretty horribly designed and just use awful screenshots as their art. Like this is my personal favorite, most hated example. This right here is the Mako card. Nothing about this is appealing. It's a horrible screenshot and it's got a text box on the card with no text on it. And that's how a lot of cards were in the base set of One Piece. Just found another one. Here's Suru. And she also looks shit. And to put my cards on the table here, how a TCG looks is extremely important to me. It is just as, if not more important than how the game actually plays, because I need to like what it is I'm looking at. And to be fair to the One Piece TCG, these days it does seem like almost every card has beautiful custom art and the game has really evolved. Right now, the only thing that stops me from getting heavily invested into it is that there is no online play. Well, there is, but it's fan-made and honestly, a good job for doing it, but it looks awful. And what keeps me invested in other games like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering is that they have their official online clients where I can easily hop into games because I don't do anything in real life anymore. I'm in my mid-30s. I don't go outside. So until something like that gets released for the One Piece TCG, I just can't see myself playing it. How do you think red-haired Shanks will get the other rubbings? Will the Mink tribe just say, oh yeah, here you go? So right now, Shanks has the Poneglyph rubbings that Eustace Kid had past tense, which he got from Wano and Whole Cake Island. And let's say that Shanks did have a way to get to Zo. That's not impossible, because he does appear to have a mink on his crew, which is this talking monkey dude. And if Shanks were to show up on Zo, I can't imagine that the minks would be hostile to him. And I was about to say this is because both Nekomamushi and Inuarashi knew Shanks as a child. They were all aboard Roger's ship together. But those two stayed on Wano, and now Carrot is the supreme mink overlord. Even then, given that Carrot's mentor Pedro had a connection to Roger, it seems likely that the Minks would be pretty friendly with the red hair pirates, and I don't see why they wouldn't let Shanks see the road poneglyph. Here's the thing though, that is the boring answer to this problem. We don't conjure fun drama through friendly meetings, and assuming we count Zoe out as an option for storytelling reasons, Shanks then has two options remaining to attain that copy of the road poneglyph, which is to either take it from Blackbeard, who more than likely took Law's copy, or to take Luffy's copy. Because at some point this poneglyph business is going to force a conflict between emperors. And the onus really is on Shanks because he feels like the front runner at the moment, but he's actually the emperor in the second worst position. The Straw Hat Pirates have a copy of all three road poneglyphs we know of, Zoe, Wano, and Whole Cake Island, and in theory so do the Blackbeard Pirates. They likely took Zoe and Wano from Law. Kuzan and Van Alga also went to Whole Cake Island personally to abduct Charlotte Pudding. To abduct her for the purpose of reading these poneglyphs, that is. And so it would be insane if they did not also get a copy of Big Mom's road poneglyph while they were there. So it really is up to Shanks to make something happen here, because at the moment he's behind in this race. I'm sick of people calling Kaido a hypocrite for saying Haki transcends all while having a broken devil fruit. Too many people are forgetting that Rock saw teenage fruitless Kaido as strong enough to fight alongside Whitebeard, Shiki, and Big Mom, who all had their own broken devil fruits because of his strength and Haki alone. What I would add to that is that Kaido was also treated as the punching bag of the Rock's pirates. He's only shown equally alongside those characters because we know that he is a character that goes on to become prominent. So he did have strength and he did have some Hakis, but he was the absolute bottom of the rock pile. Also, Kaido's line tends to be either misinterpreted or misremembered, and look, I'll admit I do this on purpose sometimes, because I enjoy the agenda of Kaido being a hypocrite and telling Luffy that his awakened sun god fruit isn't all that great because he's suddenly jelly that his own fruit doesn't look so amazing anymore. But what Kaido actually said was, abilities alone cannot conquer the world, because only Haki can transcend all. And there's two parts to this. Firstly, the word conquer. What Kaido is saying to Luffy is entirely irrelevant because of this framing. Luffy said to Rayleigh that he is not going to conquer anything. The Pirate King is the man who is the most free, which is an assessment that Roger would have agreed with. And the part two of this is that Kaido is using Roger as his metric. Roger wasn't a fruit user and therefore only Haki can conquer the world. But Roger didn't conquer the world either. And in general, Kaido just doesn't get it. He's not on the same wavelength as either Luffy or Roger, and so his criterial assessment is not to be trusted, especially since the most important factor may turn out to be neither Haki nor devil fruits or even a combination of the two. The key to it could be a different power like the voice of all things, or something much, much deeper than all of that, something that has to be innate in a person, and something that cannot be accessed by people who consider themselves to be conquerors. So with all of that said, again, I just find it funny that Kaido saw a devil fruit more powerful than his, and he threw a tantrum. Yeah, well, Straw Hat fruits don't matter that much anyway. And then he got punched into some magma, and he never spoke again. Cyberspace fellow, do you think there's a case to be made with the idea that Emu could be a Klabautermann? We know that Joy Boy broke a promise to the fisherman, and that the Noah has some sort of importance in the history. Interesting. I think we could do this. And this might be the first decent explanation I've seen for Emu existing as just a silhouette. And I guess we're implying that Emu would be the Klabautermann of the Noah, a ship that has been abandoned at the bottom of the ocean and not yet used for the purpose it was designed for. And instead of being manifested by love and care, Emu is manifested by neglect and other assorted bad things. It even gives Emu a solid motivation to be drowning the world in order to have everyone else suffer the same fate that he is. But it could also potentially tie into the existence of Davy Jones, another mythical figure cursed to spend eternity at the bottom of the ocean. There are two things though. First is how or why did the Klabautermann take on the Nerona name, and why is Emu so obsessed with Lily? I could potentially answer the second one, as maybe Lily was the Usopp in the Noah equation and wanted to take care of the ship even though for whatever reason it couldn't be used, and that is why Emu has this Lily fixation. I don't know, but I am liking this idea a lot better than Emu being a straight up sea demon though. Do you think the Thousand Sunny has its own Klabautermann? If so, how do you think it can help the Straw Hats in future adventures? I think it has to, because the Straw Hats have given the Sunny just as much love as they did the Going Merry. And in the episode of Merry, Toei made a very bold decision to actually show the Sunny's Klabautermann, which looks exactly like Merry's but with a lovely golden cloak. And this is not canon at this stage, we've not seen it in the manga, but it is definitely my headcanon at the moment. But here's something that might be a bit wild and a bit depressing, as today, right now, we are almost exactly 20 years from the date of the funeral of the Going Merry. That chapter happened in October 2006. So next year is going to be the 20th anniversary of the death of the Going Merry. And by the time that One Piece is over, we will have spent at least twice as long with the Thousand Sunny as we did with the Going Merry. And I feel like it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't get to see the will of Sunny playing an important role at some stage. Because just like Merry, Sunny is a vital crew member, and as its name implies, the Thousand Sunny deserves its time to shine. And thank you so much again to Fume for sponsoring this video, and definitely check them out through the link in the description.